Ladies and gentlemen, Shalom from Israel. My name is Avi Melamed. I am the founder and president of Inside the Middle East Intelligence Perspectives. In my previous series of briefings, I was talking about the chain of events as well as the real reasons that has led to the erupt of a war between Israel and Palestinian Islamist groups in Gaza Strip, namely Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Reminding you, Hamas launched that attack on May 10th on Jerusalem and actually initiated that war. Today is Thursday, May 20th. It is day 11th to that war. As seemingly the war is reaching towards, hopefully, some sort of a ceasefire between the sides, it is maybe a good opportunity to try and to look at the situation on the ground. I would like to address the major question, and that is there a winner in that round? I will address a couple of different aspects in order to be able to answer that question. One is the question of what were the objectives of the sides when the war began. The other thing that I will explore is to see to what extent the outcomes on the ground are complying with the interests and desires of the sides involved in the war. Let me start with Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip. Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip are standing for a radical Islam militant ideology. They vote to eliminate the state of Israel through the use of power. This is a concept that has been acknowledged in the Middle East under the name of the resistance, al-Mukawama. Hamas time and again emphasized that the armed resistance, al-Mukawama al-Musallaha, this is the only way to eliminate the state of Israel. By initiating this war, Hamas and Islamic Jihad actually were hoping to achieve a couple of accomplishments. First, they want to position the method, concept, ideology, and path of the armed resistance as the dominant one and the most appealing one in the Muslim and the Arab world. Second, coming from an Islamic perspective, they wanted to position themselves as the defenders of Al-Quds, the Arabic name of Jerusalem, and the Islamic symbols in Jerusalem, not only on behalf of the Palestinians, but also on behalf of the Muslim world. Third, Hamas was hoping through this military campaign to decisively win the rivalry between him and the major other Palestinian camp, the Fatah movement, which is the major pillar of the Palestinian National Authority. Another objective of Hamas and Islamic Jihad through the campaign was to ignite the arenas that are bordering Israel, namely Lebanon, Syria, Jordan. They also hoped to ignite the parts of the West Bank that are controlled by the Palestinian Authority. And finally, they hoped to ignite the arena of Israeli Arabs who live in Israel, some 1.2 million people. Those were the objectives of Hamas and Islamic Jihad when they launched this war. Israel's objective, roughly speaking, since Israel was the one that the war was imposed upon, was to restore deterrence and to restore sense of security to the people of Israel. I will start with the Palestinian side, Hamas and Islamic Jihad. If I'll try to sum it up, I will say that it's very clear that to a large extent the outcomes of the war are falling very short of both Hamas and Islamic Jihad expectations. Let me start with the military component. Hamas and Islamic Jihad military strategy is based upon a couple of ingredients. One is terrorizing Israeli civilians. That is being done through the shooting of thousands of rockets, mortar shells targeting millions of Israelis. However, the death toll outcome of that attacks is 12 Israeli civilians that were killed. It is clearly falling very short of Hamas and Islamic Jihad vision of terrorizing Israeli cities and citizens. The major reason for that failure is the performance of the Israeli Iron Dome system, who has successfully intercepted some 90% of the rockets that were launched from Gaza Strip targeting Israeli cities. The second layer of Hamas and Islamic Jihad military strategy is the use of special operations, using attacking drones, submarines, special forces that are supposed to infiltrate and occupy Israeli communities. During that war so far, all of those actions were successfully intercepted by Israel. Israel has performed a very advanced real-time intelligence capacities and operational capacities in intercepting those attempts. The third layer on Hamas and Islamic Jihad military strategy is the network of tunnels dug in Gaza Strip, estimated to be some couple of hundreds of miles. This is a network of tunnels rather known as the metro. That network of tunnels has three tactical objectives and one strategic objective. Let me start with the tactical objective. First, the tunnels are supposed to enable Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants to move freely under the ground without being exposed to the Israeli ground operation. It has to be understood that Hamas is using the civil infrastructure of Gaza Strip. It's woven into its military campaign. Launchers of Hamas are located in a civil environment. Offices, command rooms, headquarters are located in residential buildings, in commercial buildings, including, by the way, the building that was toppled down that used to be a building serving the foreign media in Gaza Strip. Second, some of the tunnels are supposed to be used for infiltrating to Israeli communities next by to Gaza Strip, taking over the communities, killing their inhabitants, and so on. In the last couple of years, Israel was able to build a massive underground barrier that basically, to a large extent, intercept Hamas and Islamic Jihad capacities or capabilities to infiltrate to the Israeli territory using those tunnels. The third tactical objective of the tunnel is to be used by Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants as a place from which they will emerge to the ground and will attack Israeli ground forces, killing as much as possible Israeli soldiers and also kidnapping them. Hamas and Islamic Jihad time and again promised, sort of speaking, quote unquote, Israel, that the tunnels of Gaza Strip will become a graveyard for the Israeli soldiers. The strategic objective of the tunnel is actually to deter Israel from a ground operation. In this war, Israel successfully destroyed large portion of the metro. Israel was doing that by the combination of an outstanding real-time intelligence and advanced high-precision attacking capacities of the Israeli Air Force. It's very important to emphasize one aspect which is very significant. Israel was able to destroy large portion of Hamas metro without one Israeli soldier entering to the Gaza Strip. This is a massive blow to Hamas and Islamic Jihad military strategy. And together with the collapsing tunnels, collapsed also one of the most significant component of Hamas and Islamic Jihad military strategy. It is very clear that they will need to recalculate their military strategy based upon the huge achievement that Israel marked on this war. Hamas was hoping to ignite the arenas bordering Israel, namely Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, the West Bank, the parts in the West Bank that is controlled by Hamas bitter rivalry, the Palestinian Authority and Fatah movement, and also the arena of the Israeli Arabs who live in Israel. In that regard, Hamas can mark a partial achievement. Indeed, there has been a couple of rockets launched from Lebanon towards Israel. There has been demonstrations in Jordan, in the West Bank, some of them even to a certain extent violent. There has been even an incident of a drone that was apparently launched from Syria and apparently launched by Iranian-affiliated forces in Syria. But all in all, when you look at this whole attempt of Hamas to ignite these arenas, you could see that Hamas can mark only a very partial, limited in time and in volume impact, at least thus far. There is another arena that I mentioned before that I would like to elaborate a little bit on that, and that is the context of the Israeli Arabs, the Arabs who live in Israel. As you are well aware, during the campaign there has been phenomenon of violence between Jews and Arabs in different parts in Israel, particularly in some cities that are mixed cities, meaning cities that have both large Arab and Jewish population. Though Hamas' tendency and others who support Hamas is to present those clashes as an indicator of support of Israeli Arabs in Hamas and its way, I would argue that this is a false assumption. Overwhelming majority of the Israeli Arabs do not identify with Hamas' radical way, nor do they adopt its militant ideology. However, the expressions of violence that we have witnessed in streets of Israel are to be associated mostly with groups of extremists, both Jews and Arabs, that basically took advantage of the situation. It is very important for me to emphasize that overwhelming majority of the people in Israel, Jews and Arabs, are moderate people. They are peaceful people. They want to live their life normally. They want to have a future of hope and prosperity for them and for their kids. Every day there are so many aspects of this beautiful coexistence between Jews and Arabs. Jews and Arabs are working together in hospitals, in academic institutions, in NGOs. They are involved and engaged in joint economic activities. So it's very important to emphasize the existence of that camp, because this is the camp of the majority. And that camp is stronger and much more powerful than the camp of hatred and incitement. The bottom line for that question, the answer is very clear. When you are screening the way I am doing every day, the Arab world, and I'm reading the commentators in the Arab world, and I'm hearing the discussion in the Arab world, on the TV show, on the public realm, the picture is very clear. There is a growing and intensifying criticism in the Arab world of Hamas. That criticism is not new. This is a criticism that has been there for a long period of time, ever since Hamas took over Gaza Strip in a violent coup in 2007. The issues of that criticism centers around a couple of things. First, the Arab world says to Hamas, your radical way and your violence has dragged the people of Gaza Strip into catastrophe, from one catastrophe to a worse catastrophe. The second core argument in the Arab world is that Hamas is serving radical agendas that are jeopardizing the Arab world itself. Namely, Hamas is serving the Iranian hegemonic vision, and Hamas is serving the radical part of the Muslim Brotherhood. These are two major threats as far as the major Arab states like Egypt, like the Gulf monarchies, like Jordan are concerned. The third core of the criticism on Hamas centers around the issue of jeopardizing and risking every possible path for a possible solution. The Arab world says to Hamas, by perpetuating a mindless, hopeless violence that results only time and again just more and more catastrophe upon the people of Gaza Strip, you Hamas, you are basically blocking any hope for any kind of future for all Palestinians. It is very clear the Arab world loathes Hamas and Islamic Jihad. In that context, a very significant piece of information. Last night, the leader of Islamic Jihad, a very radical extreme group that vows all the time only violence, he made a speech where basically he apologized to people in Gaza Strip. Basically said, we, meaning Islamic Jihad and Hamas, we have been paying heavy price, but he said, we had no choice. This is, in a way, his way to send an apologizing message to the people of Gaza for the destruction Islamic Jihad and Hamas inflicted upon the people of Gaza in this campaign. As you may recall, my opening briefing was asking, is there a winner? Well, I can tell you for sure that Hamas will walk out and announce victory. But in my analysis, Israel can walk away with a real sense of accomplishment. My analysis goes back to the question that we have discussed during my briefing, and that is to what extent the outcomes of the war on the ground met the objectives of the sides. As you may recall, we have been exploring the issue of military achievements, the issue of Hamas' capacity or incapacity to cause Israel a massive damage the way he would like to. We have explored the issue of the reaction in the Arab world who criticizes Hamas and Islamic Jihad. All in all, when you look at the outcomes on the ground through those lenses, one can reach a very clear, decisive conclusion. Israel can walk away with a very strong sense of accomplishment. Though the war still continues, hopefully to be end soon, and though maybe in the future we are still heading additional rounds, I think that at this point we could say that in the foreseeable future, and I would say even beyond that, Israel restore deterrence and restore sense of security of the people of Israel. I'm Avi Melamed. Thank you for watching. Until our next meeting, stay well and shalom from Israel. My name is Avi Melamed. I have dedicated my life to help people understanding this region. If you want to connect the dots and to understand the news, book your online briefing now.